The 5 Live Cricket Show.
Evening, I'm Mark Chapman, Phil Tufnell and Paul... let me start that again, blimey. Phil Tufnell and Paul Farbrace are with us for the next hour. We'll look back at the fourth test. We'll talk James Anderson. We'll hear from him, actually. We'll look ahead to the final test in Hobart. Tammy Beaumont will join us as well ahead of the Women's Ashes. And we'll also touch on probably the biggest cricket story of the last couple of weeks, and that's Bangladesh and their huge upset last week, and now how New Zealand are battling back. Right then, Phil Tufnell, Paul Farbrace, let's talk about England drawing the fourth test. First of all, were you comfortable watching the final few overs, Philip?
I was just happy to be there for 5 days, Chappers. We had a great game of cricket. Who says Test cricket's dead? It was a nail-biting last hour and a half, wasn't it? With the tail end just seeing us home, but. It was great. I thoroughly enjoyed the game. It was great to see some fight, some determination, some pride for the badge. There was a few good performances thrown in there along the way with the likes of Johnny Bairstow, but just great to see, even though it was hanging on by the skin of our teeth, a draw and no 5-0 whitewash. I'm sure they're going to take a little bit of confidence with them now to Hobart.
Paul?
Well, I'm the same as Phil. I have to say the soft hands with which our two tail-enders were playing out their spin was very encouraging to watch. It reminded me of Tuffers and I batting against Wasim Akram and him telling me to face Gary Yates because he had the better, softer hands, and I could see off Wasim Akram the other end. So thanks for that, Tuffers.
Well, Farbs, I may look stupid, but I'm not. And by the way, Farbs, hold on, mate. How are you, mate? All right?
I'm very well, thank you, Philip. Very well.
Why are you not on Zoom? Why are you not on Zoom?
Well, I've just come off the beach, actually, so I didn't really think I should be on Zoom. It wasn't appropriate.
Oh, dear. I think most me and Phil are rather jealous that most people listening will be rather jealous that you're on a beach somewhere. Listen, just from a player and a coach's perspective here, from a fan's point of view, you're sort of happy that Australia aren't going to get 5-0, but you probably don't want to go overboard celebrating just managing to cling on to a draw when it's been such a miserable series. But actually, within the camp, Paul, something like that performance and that result could make a big difference.
It can make a huge difference. These two last test matches will show everybody what players have got. And these are the times when you really, really find out. It would be very easy to capitulate and finish 5-0 and come away having been absolutely hammered on the field, off the field, media. Everybody has got a view on the England cricket team at the moment. So to show that fight, Zach Crawley, Johnny Bairstow to play as well as they did, Stuart Broad getting 5 for... There were so many things from that game that you want to take forward. And Joe Root's right. They're not going to get overly excited by that performance, but there is enough there to take into that last test match. And if we can back it up in Hobart and play some good cricket again, then it really does lead on to the next series. And that's what you're looking for. International sport is about the here and now. And I think the big mistake is too much time being spent on looking forward to this series for too long. International sport is about the here and now. Win the game that's in front of you. And that's all they can do at the moment.
From a player's point of view, Chappers, from a player's point of view, it just means you can lift your head up a little bit higher. And I know we were hanging on to the end of the draw, but just to keep getting blown away, you're getting it from the bloke opening the door for you at the hotel, you're getting it over breakfast, you're getting it from everywhere you go in Australia. It just means that you can hold yourself a bit better and say that you're competing. And we've fronted up at Sydney. We managed to get a draw, and you kind of put those ones away. Obviously, you're disappointed with the other three that you've been absolutely walloped in, but no one keeps getting a walloping. So from a player's perspective, it just means that you've proved to yourself that you can come back from adversity a little bit, and you take those little grains, little baby steps, and take them forward into the next test match. And also it just puts Australia a little bit on the back foot as well, because they'll be sitting there giving you stick all through the test match, going, come on, it's going to be 5-0, come on, get out, just get on with it, you know what's going to happen. So it just gives you a little bit of a punch back. No one likes to go out in a boxing match and keep getting jabbed in the face all the time and getting knocked out, and so you've just slung something back at the opposition.
Phil Tufnell and Paul Farbrace with us on 5 Live Cricket. If you want the FA Cup, it's on BBC One this evening. We're going to hear from James Anderson now. After that final day's play, he caught up with Greg James and Felix White on an emergency Tailenders podcast and ran them through those final stages.
I can't remember when Broady went in. It must have been like 10 overs, maybe even more, left to bat. And I was sat in a chair in the dressing room, and the Barmy Army was singing, like their song is, "We are the army, the Barmy Army, we are mental and we are blah, blah, blah." And I'm just tapping my feet along to that song. And then as soon as the bowler started running into bowl, I stopped, watched the ball, and then started tapping again, tapping my feet. And then I was also counting down. So if someone started an over, I was like, right, I've got 5 balls to face in this over if Leachy or Broady gets out, and then counting down the balls that I had to face in that over if they got out that particular ball. And then the closer we got, I was feeling a little bit more calm, I guess, but still doing the tapping, still doing the counting of the balls. And then there was a moment where the umpire said it was too dark to bowl seamers. So then I thought, I've got this. Spin is my absolute niche. I absolutely love facing spin. If it was Pat Cummins bowling, you'd have seen a lot more of the whites of my eyes.
I've seen you like that, yeah.
Yeah, but I felt like so. I was definitely, looking back, I was thinking clearly as well, because I knew it was only spin that I could face. So just before I walked out to bat, when Leachy got out, I felt my chest pad around my chest, obviously. So I thought, I'm going to take it off, just in case the ball bounces up and pops up off my chest pad. So if it hits my ribs, it'll just fall to the floor. So I took that off. I took my arm guard off just to feel a bit more comfortable, and hopefully the ball wouldn't bounce anywhere that it, because there's so many men round the bat. And then, once I got out there, Broady was obviously really confident. He faced a few balls. He was talking me through what he was going to do. And then, I just had to try and see out 6 balls from Steve Smith, which 5 were pretty good balls, actually. He landed them really well. And then the 6th ball was a bit of a... I don't like using the word pie, but people in cricket do often use it. So I don't think Steve would begrudge me of using the word pie, because so afterward I immediately smiled as soon as he bowled that ball, because it was a short and wide, and I could, it was easy to defend. And then the minute I shook his hand, I was like, "What was that?" And he's like, "Yeah, pressure got to me."
Wow.
So we had a nice moment at the end of the game.
Well, just on that, a very funny man called Darren Richmond tweeted saying that the test match ends with one of the best batsmen in history facing off against one of the best bowlers in history, both doing the wrong job. What a sport. It was an extraordinary moment.
Yeah, it was.
So, well, that's that. So what have we, genuinely, what's the mood downstairs? Have you, obviously there's relief, isn't there? But are people, does it feel like this is just what the team needed to just remind everyone that you can all play cricket to a very high standard if it all comes together on the day?
Yeah, I feel like the feeling around the group is that it's a small step in the right direction. It's, we've still had to cling on for the draw, so it's by no means a celebration of a, we've not won the game. The Ashes is still gone, so we're still in a pretty average position, but it is a small step in the right direction. I thought the way Zach Crawley played was really exciting. I thought he dominated their bowlers. He really did, getting 77 off 100. Having come in the series halfway through, or after 2 tests, was the way he played was great. So the way he's sort of shaping up is promising. And also, you look at, so we had Joss Butler, who's broken a finger, Johnny Bairstow broken his thumb, Ben Stokes has pulled his side. So we've been dealt a pretty average hand there, but still managed to get through. So I think it does show a little bit about our character, that we do fight until the end. We in the first 3 tests we've not been good enough skill-wise, but we have got fight and we have got determination to try and get better. We had no cricket leading into this. Imagine what we could have achieved if we'd have had 2 or 3 first-class games before the series. But because of COVID, because of the World Cup, it just wasn't possible. And you look, the guys that have got runs for them, the majority were playing state cricket, first-class cricket in Australia leading up to this series. So I don't want to make it sound like an excuse, because it's not. You know, we should have played better, but the preparation's not been great, and it's starting to show now. You know, you see the guys getting used to the conditions, playing the way they are. It is frustrating that we're now showing what we can do, but hopefully, you know, we've got another test again next week in Hobart to just keep improving.
Just on the on some of the performances with the bat, I wanted to pick out Johnny Bairstow and talk about him, because it felt like the confidence that he showed out in the middle really permeated through the rest of the batting lineup to a certain extent. Do you think that's the case? Because he really just felt like he took on an enormous burden for the whole team, didn't he, at 36 for 4 or whatever it was?
Yeah, I think, well, that partnership pretty much with him and Ben Stokes, you know, yeah, like you say, 30 for 4 or whatever we were, for those two to actually put a bit of pressure back onto Australia's bowlers. You know, it did sort of, you could feel something going through the team. Like you know, it's not impossible to play against these guys. We could, you know, if you put pressure on them, that they feel it as much as anyone else. Those two in particular, the way they played against Nathan Lyon, I think he went at like 5 and over for quite a long period of that innings, and that's something that he goes at under 3 and over. And creates pressure, allows the seamers to rotate from the other end. But actually putting pressure on him meant that the seamers have got to bowl a bit more. So yeah, it helped the team. And I think the way Zach played second innings, I felt like he took a bit from that. The way he pulled the ball, the minute it was short, he just latched onto it and crunched it for 4. So, you know, someone like him will take huge confidence from that. And hopefully the rest of the team will as well going forward.
And also, Jim, they did like a lot. When you look back on Ben Stokes' career in like 10 years or something, you'll talk about like what were distinctive innings for him. And I really felt like the first innings where he clearly pulled his side, but he was sort of counter-punching. And even though he was in extreme pain and anguish afterwards, he was hitting the ball out the ground on occasion and really taking him back on. That really sort of summed up the essence of Ben Stokes as a cricketer as well, I thought.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I mean, if you've never pulled your side, you don't know what pain that it's like. I mean, when you break a rib or something like that, you struggle breathe. Every breath, you feel it. You feel discomfort. Pulling your side is like that. It's you know, there are certain movements that really, really are painful. And he stayed on the field in the second innings because he wanted to. First innings when he did it, he came off. But he wanted to stay on the field so he could bat 5, because he knew if he stayed off the field, he'd have to bat 7 because of the time off the field. So that just shows like what it means to him playing. You know what he means to this team, what playing for this team means to him. And already he's like feels a bit better. You know, he's still wanting to play the 5th test, even though we're 3-0 down. It's very easy for him to go, you know what, I've pulled my side. I'll go home and get it sorted. He's like, no, it hurt, yeah, but I played well enough, and it I can get through it to play in that 5th test. So he's still got his sights on playing that 5th test.
Pretty magic moment, that. And also a quick word on Stuart Broad. Brilliant to see him properly in the wickets in the first innings and coming back and doing what Stuart Broad tends to do and really, you know, prove everyone wrong and say, you shouldn't keep dropping me.
Yeah, I thought he bowled brilliantly. I spoke to him after the night of his 5 for. And he's a bit gutted that he went for over 100. But, you know, he bowled much better than that. He bowled really, really well. Took vital wickets that we needed. He took the key wickets of Smith and people like that, you know. And yeah, I mean, he's a class act. He's got 500 odd wickets. You don't get that many test wickets if you're not good at what you do. So yeah, I was delighted for him. And just hope that he keeps getting a run, because he's so good at what he does. So passionate about playing for England. You could see that as well. I thought that really shone through in his batting, actually, at the end. You know, the way he dug in, you know, he was really confident about taking the strike with Jack Leach. They rotated the strike, shared it between them. They didn't just leave it to one of the guys to sort of take all the strike. And he was determined. The minute I got out there as well, he's telling me exactly what to do. Get a big stride in, smother the ball, don't let the bounce beat your bat. I was like, all right, mate, I've played before, it's fine. You know, I know what I'm doing. But yeah, he's great. And it means so much to me. And I won't lie, he's a bit sort of gutted that he's not been able to play a bigger part in this tour. But hopefully in the future he'll be able to keep showing people what he can do.
Yeah.
And finally, also, I know we're going to mention everyone now, but Jack Leach took 4 wickets and he's batted with a lot of courage there to save a test match as well over a long period of time, hasn't he? So it's so nice just collectively that everyone's leaving. I'm so happy for all you lot out there, but also everyone at home to be watching, that there's a sort of real good feeling suddenly about everyone's performances, which is just a lovely thing.
But yeah, I think everyone's chipping in. You know, the way Mark Wood bowled, he didn't get the wickets that he probably deserved. I thought he bowled brilliantly through both innings. And in particular, second innings, he kept charging in and didn't quite get his rewards. And the way he batted in the first innings, smacking Pat Cummins for more sixes than anyone else has ever hit him for. You know, he had a lot of fun doing that. Johnny Bairstow getting the runs he did. Zach Crawley. There's loads of like little positives coming out of this. And it's just a case of everyone doing it at the same time and keep these little improvements going. Because there is a good fit. Like, we know... Like, everyone knows how good this team could be. It's just a case of trying to prove it out in the middle, which we've not done so far.
So Phil Tufnell and Paul Farbrace with us on 5 Live Cricket. You want to say something after the Jimmy interview, do you, Philip?
Well, no, it's just that they held an emergency podcast. What did they think we were going to lose again? It's a draw. You know what I mean? Oh no, there's emergency. But you could just tell. I mean, you were saying how does it change the camp and the guys within the camp? You could just tell by Jimmy's Anderson's voice there what it means. He was sort of upbeat, wasn't he? He was talking about other people's performances and how well everyone got stuck in and what play and what we could have done and things like that. So that's what a draw, even though it was just by the skin of a teeth, can do to a side. You could hear it in his voice there. It's great.
Let's talk about some of the players, some of the performances. Paul, I'm fascinated with Johnny Bairstow's England career, really, because there will be a lot of England cricket fans who think he's been harshly treated at times. Would that be fair?
I think it is. Even during my period of being involved, I remember us moving Johnny from 7 to 5 against South Africa and 2 test matches. And it was very obvious around the group he was just not comfortable. And we went back to batting him at 7 for the next test match at the Oval. And it was a completely different person. And Trevor Bayliss always had this thing about Johnny that he liked Johnny when he had a point to prove. He felt that you would get something from him when he had a point to prove. And that happened in one-day cricket and test match cricket. But you didn't want him to have a point to prove for too long. There's an element of Johnny that needs to feel loved and wanted. And I think that's the big thing, that it would be great if he could keep wicket in this last game, bat at 7 and keep wicket. I think that's where England get the best out of him. When he feels loved, he feels wanted, he knows he's going to play. And having 2 parts of the game, having his keeping and his batting, it allows him to take the focus off if it's just one. If he's just playing as a batter and he knows it's all about runs, actually, when he's got the chance to do both, I think England get the best out of him. But I've also been a massive Buttler fan, and I can see why Rooty wants Joss in the team. He brings so much to the team. He's a great team man. But that team man bit only lasts for so long, and you've got to be putting performances in. So I personally think Johnny definitely has been, even during my time, slightly mistreated and a bit unfortunate in some of his selections.
Yeah, I think almost Chappers has been a bit of a victim of his own success in a funny sort of way. Do you know what I mean? You know, it's like, do we bat him at 5? Do we bat him at 7? You know, do we put him even further up the order? Do we give him the gloves? Do we not give him the gloves? So sometimes, you know, it's because you're such a talented player that you can counter-attack or you can get stuck in, you can keep wickets. Sometimes it always reminded me a bit like Chris Lewis back in the day. Do you know what I mean? Such an all-round cricketer that can do anything, that sometimes, and a bit like Moeen Ali as well, that sometimes they get a little bit sort of not knowing what they can do. It's a bit like in the football when you can play anywhere. Just put me in that position and give me a good little run at it. I'm going to get some low scores for sure, but then I've got those knocks in me that can turn test matches. And as a bowler, I'd love to see Johnny Bairstow not playing. You know what I mean? Because Johnny Bairstow can hurt you. And when he can hurt you, he can change games. And you don't like seeing too many of them in the side. I don't mind seeing guys who are sort of all nice and technical coming in down the order. I don't like seeing people who can go and get you 100, as you say, go and get you 100 off 100 balls.
Yeah, agreed.
It makes him... It's actually quite complex, Paul, within then, isn't it? Really? Because you talk about him having the kind of personality that he needs to prove something to people, or he's got, he's going to prove people wrong. And yet, therefore, that means if he's in a comfort zone of regularly having a spot, then he doesn't have to ram people's words back down their throat.
Yeah, but you only want him to have that point to prove briefly. You just want him just occasionally to have that point to prove. And that's what you're absolutely right. Complex is the right word. I mean, Johnny Bairstow is the sort of bloke that if someone was coming to the hotel at 4:00 in the afternoon and you wanted them to meet an England cricketer just to say hello to them and shake their hand, you'd ring Johnny Bairstow because he'd be the first bloke there. But equally, Johnny is a great team man. He does everything for the team. He really is a very good person, but he needs love. He needs a lot of support and he needs a lot of love. And that's why I say just occasionally, when he wasn't quite in the one-day side, and I remember a game at Lords, we played, I think, South Africa, we were 12 for 4 or something, and he came in and got 50 and batted at number 6. And it was almost like, right, you lot have all failed. This is my chance to show you. And almost the scene was set for him here in Sydney to get 100 because it was, right, I'm going to show you blokes that I can play. And there's no question. And Tuffers is right. We moved him up and down the order. Trevor Bayliss used to say that Johnny Bairstow could bat 4-5 in England and he wanted him in his team, but he was always worried that if he took him away from batting 7 and took the gloves away from him, we wouldn't get the same Johnny Bairstow because complex is not the right word, but Johnny needs to feel loved. And the higher up you go, you'd be amazed how many players in international cricket need that love. They need to know that they're wanted and supported.
Well, that should be easy to do, shouldn't it, Farbs? Give them a little bit of love, mate.
You do, and of course you do. But it's also, it's also in, and you know this, Philip, that the media, they build a picture of a person, they get on someone's case, they start getting into them, and players are humans, and they start to listen to this chat, and whether it's really positive and really good stuff or very negative stuff. And even if they say they don't read it, someone else in their family does and tells them, this is what so-and-so said about you, this is what so-and-so said about you. And I've seen many in England cricket who want, who was it who wrote that? Tell me which one is it? I want to have a chat with them. No, forget it. Move on. You don't need to. But it is complex. And putting your arm around people, understanding people is probably the biggest thing you do in an international dressing room, more than talk about technique. It's about making them feel good, making sure that they're ready for what's coming in front of them. And that, for me, is one of the most important things. Knowing your player means you know what they need. You know how to speak to them. And there are others in that team that like a nice, complicated, detailed chat about their game. And it's about knowing which one wants what. Johnny Bairstow needs a lot of love. And you're absolutely right. He is a victim of his own success because he was so versatile. He's moved up and down and almost lost that key position that he nails down for himself. And Moeen Ali is another one who fits magnificently into that category as well. So
that leads me on to the next bit here, which follows on from when I was driving home on Saturday evening, and I was listening to Ian Chappell on TMS talking about Zach Crawley, Phil, and he was talking about how, he watches Zach Crawley and he just sees a test batsman. Okay, just sees a test batter in Zach Crawley. And he made the point that he thought that sometimes England have got themselves into tis with a batsman who isn't scoring runs, thinking it's down to technique when it actually might be down to confidence. And he cited Zach Crawley as well. And he actually said, talk about the love and the arm round. He said, sometimes you have to recognise it's just a bad spell of form and they need an arm round them going, what can we do to try and help you get out of this? Not pick apart technique or anything like that. Say, right, what can we do? We're keeping you in the side, but what can we do to help you get through this run of form?
Yeah. Well, I think Zach Crawley has put down a huge marker there for England just by the way he played. He called it, didn't he? He called it before the Test match, actually. He said, I'm going to go out there and score 100. So he's obviously a kind of guy that's not lacking in confidence. And his shot selection, I mean, we was listening to Jimmy there saying the crunches that he, the pull shots that he just swivels onto so quickly. He can get forward and hit the likes of Pat Cummins and these Australian fast bowlers straight back past him as well. He's just got to get himself in. It's one of those basics again. You've just got to get past, especially as an opening batsman, you've got to get past that first half an hour when the ball's doing a little bit, the bowlers are fresh and it's deviating and going off the seam. You've got to find, that's when your technique comes in, because there's no point in sitting in the dressing room playing all these hook shots and pull shots because you're out. So he needs to find that way of just getting through that sticky period, because then he is the kind of batsman that England need. He can then take the attack to the opposition, and that's what he did at Sydney, and it was great to see. And you know, these great bowlers in the world, if some bloke's in and has the gears and has the ability and the shots to put pressure on you, they're the ideal kind of guys. And I think Crawley's got it for England. I think he's going to be around for a long time, and he should be given a lot of, he should be given that arm round the shoulder and that run of games that when a couple, if you're opening the batting, you're always going to get a couple of good pills. You know what I mean? You're going to get low scores, but when you get past that awkward period, he is someone who can cash in and put pressure on the upper.
And that's where, Tuffers, that's where someone like, and I really like that before the test, he was talking up, I'm going to get 100, I'm going to show you I'm going to play. Yeah. And he took that mentality into the game. The mentality is so much more important than the technique. The thinking, the mentality, I really like the people that have got that mentality. They get stuck in and know what they do. They work out what's needed from them at that particular stage of the game. When do I get stuck in? When do I see off this next 8 overs? New balls come in. I'm going to scrap through it. I'm going to fight through it. I might get ugly runs. Then there'll be a period. The bowlers are back. It's their third spell. The ball's a bit older. I'm going to score. I'm going to take my chance. I'm going to play some shots. You still got to have the basics of a good technique. And if your technique is found wanting, you know that you're thinking about your own technique rather than the ball coming towards you. And once you're thinking about your own feet, your head, your hands, whatever, you're making your mind complicated. And you've got to keep it as simple as possible. And that's where the mindset for me is huge. But you've also got to have a very simple, repeatable technique, which we haven't seen enough of from the England batters in this series. And therefore, their confidence starts to get eroded, and the two go hand in hand.
But do you think, Paul, there is this issue then of not, and hindsight's a wonderful thing after he's played like he has done in Sydney, but should there have been, when he was in his sticky spell of form and then got dropped, should there have been more of the, bearing in mind he'd got this double ton against Pakistan, should there have been a bit more, you will get through this, what can we do to help you, rather than biffing him out?
Yeah, possibly. And I also think that you have to look at the conditions you're playing in. David Malan, the last time we were there, played brilliantly because of the bounce of the ball. He doesn't get massively forward. So sometimes in England, if the ball nips around a little bit, he gets a little bit half-hearted. In Australia, because his hands are higher, he lets the ball come. And that's why he's had some success the last series, and he started well in this series. I thought Crawley would have been a much better pick than Hamid in this series because of his height of his hands and the fact that, he actually can stand taller, he get on the bounce of the ball. I said right from the start, I think Haseeb Hamid is a fantastic young player. I really do. I think he's got a brilliant mentality, but he had to get his hands higher to cope with the bouncing ball. And it is no surprise to me that he's had the series that he's had. And I said that right from the start. I'm not saying it, halfway through a series. I thought Crawley should have started because of his height. And I think we saw the other day, he got on top of the bounce of the ball. That's why he was able to get the pulls away and deal with, you've got to be able to play square of the wicket. Too many England players have got out trying to force the ball on the offside with a half-angled bat and nicking it to slip. It's the bounce that does you in Australia more than anything else. And once Crawley showed with his confidence he could cut and pull, you're in the game. You think the players that have played well in this series can cut and pull. If you can't cut and pull in Australia, it's very difficult to score runs.
Yeah, I mean, also though, Chappers, you were saying that about, the reason he was dropped is he was averaging about 7.
Yes, I know. I take that. I take that point.
There does come a time, and this is where all the coaches in the world and everyone can sit down and put arms around you. At the end of the day, you've got to be going back after failures and successes as a batsman or in any cricketer, bowler or whatever. You've got to go back to your room and you have a lie down. you make yourself a cup of tea and you think to yourself, right, what have I learned, or a beer, and you think to yourself, right, what have I learned from that? And I don't seem to think that there's enough of that going on at the moment, Farbs. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, you're the only person walking over that white line, and if you keep playing away swinging half volleys when you're opening batting and you keep getting caught second slip, stop doing it. Do it when you get to 30. There are some basics of this sort of game of cricket that you play, and you've got to learn from everything. And I think sometimes these young players, they're given a bit too much of a long leash, so you just can't keep nicking off when you're an opening batsman with wide ones outside off stump, otherwise you're going to get dropped. You know, you've got to take everything from every experience and then build on it and take it forward to your next game.
Well, that's why the best players know their game quicker than anybody else. That's why they play 100 test matches rather than playing 7 or 8 and get left out of the side.
Yeah. You got to take every little nugget of information, store it, and not just then perhaps having a coach saying, "Oh, unlucky," you know, just keep talking about this and that. Sometimes you got to go up to it and say, "Listen, mate, you keep nicking off." You know what I mean? It's as simple as that. You've got to do something different, otherwise you're going to be gone.
We've already we've touched on Buttler and Bairstow in this chat. Buttler has obviously flown home. He's got a bad finger injury. Johnny Bairstow probably won't keep wicket in the final test because
did Jimmy Anderson say it was broken there?
He's got so he's got a broken thumb. So Sam Billings has driven 500 miles to join up with the England squad.
I would walk 500 miles.
And he
to get left out.
Well, no. I'll come on to that in just a moment. Let's hear from him first of all. Whilst he was en route from the Gold Coast to Sydney, he spoke with Jonathan Agnew.
Very Sam Billings thing to do, to drive 9 hours to run the drink. So, no, look, it's one of those things where we had a discussion before with Spoons and Ashley Giles yesterday on the phone. And look, I've obviously been playing a lot of cricket out here. I know not the format, but I think like anything, you get confidence from runs behind yourself and game time, and that's what I've had. So at the age of 30, you're no spring chicken, that actually you have a really good idea of where your game's at. So if needed, I'm kind of ready to go, and I've had to bide my time in terms of an opportunity for consistent game time, probably for the last 5 years since I made my debut. I haven't consistently had that run of games. So I think any opportunity now, being able to enjoy it and play and not run the drinks, if I'm honest. I've done that too much, and I suppose proving not only to myself but to other people as well that I'm not just kind of a fill-in. It's I am good enough to warrant a place in the side, and it's great if that opportunity does arise. I've got no pressure on me. It's an opportunity that no one really expected, and I've got nothing to lose, and I think that's a great place to be, actually.
I love that interview, Phil. I mean, like a really fair play to him there. Right, knows his game, knows where he's at in his career. If you want me, don't mess me about. I need a few guarantees here.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. As you said, I think he was almost saying a very Sam Billings thing for him to do, to drive 500 miles to right. He's saying, "No, I'm not having this anymore. I don't mind that. And I'd play him. I'd play him for that reason, that he's desperate to play for England. He's been over there. He's been in the country. I know it's a different format, but it's interesting actually. I mean, he hasn't kept a lot for Kent, has he? In the longer game?
No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't. I mean, do you know the thing I really liked about that was the fact that, he was saying, look, I will go and play, but I want to make sure that I'm going to play in those T20s as well. And I'm really pleased to hear that, because for too long, he's been too agreeable. And I'll give you a great example.
Yeah.
I signed him at 14 on the Kent Academy. We played an academy game when he was 15. He had the worst day I've ever seen any young keeper ever have. And I kept saying to him afterwards, "Are you okay? Are you sure you're okay?" And he rang me the next day and he said, "I forgot to wear a box, but I didn't want to tell you in case you told me off." And that's how he's always been. He's that agreeable, nice Sam Billings. Now, I'm really pleased that he's actually shown some teeth in the last few days and said, "I'm fed up with carrying drinks." I was partly responsible for giving him his debut with England in 2015. We picked him in that New Zealand series when we started to turn the corner in one-day cricket. And I thought he had that something about him, something very special as a cricketer. What I have seen in the last couple of years is someone now batting with their head rather than batting with their ego. We know he's got all the shots. He plays all the shots. And I thought there were times in one-day cricket, he almost tried to play 5 innings within 1 innings to show us what he had. I think in recent times, he's actually using experience now. And listen, really good luck to him. He might not be the next best keeper to being picked for England, but if he gets his opportunity, he certainly won't let us down. And he has got that fight in him, which we need in the side at this particular time.
You wouldn't. So Johnny Bairstow won't be keeping wicket with a broken thumb.
Well, I wouldn't have thought so. I mean, I had 2 good thumbs and found it difficult. So with one thumb,
you were all fingers and thumbs,
I think he would find it very difficult. If he's got a broken thumb, I don't know. Well, he can't keep wicket, definitely not.
Well, I don't even know how he's going to bat. They're still sort of saying that he's looking to bat with a broken thumb. And he's saying it goes back to Ben Stokes as well. Can you play Ben Stokes with a side strain as well, even if he's not going to bowl? So selection has been an absolute nightmare for England this trip. It just keeps going on. But just from that interview, I'd pick him. I don't think I'd stick Ollie Pope in there with the gloves, would you, Farb?
No, I think Billings is a better keeper. And as I say, I think that, you bring in someone in who's got that real desperate side to them to show what they can do. And you wouldn't put it beyond him getting 100 in the Test match.
Absolutely.
No, he might not be England's first choice selection for the Caribbean series, but you wouldn't put it beyond him. This is the sort of opportunity you're looking for. And to hear someone like Crawley before that last Test match, I'm going to get 100, play brilliantly. Billings going into this, you want people with that confidence and that almost the arrogance to say, I'm going to show you what I've got. This is my opportunity.
Is he a leader?
Yeah, definitely.
He's doing a great job. He's doing a great job at the Thunder. Everyone, I've been hearing reports from him. What a fan! Listen, he's a fantastic fella. Anyway, I've met him on numerous occasions. He's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. As you say, he's a leader as well. But also now he's just showing his teeth and his maturity at 30 to say, well, hold on a minute. I'm not just going to be the nice guy. I'm going to be the guy who wants to play. And I'm here, and I've driven 500 miles. And if I get left out, you're going to know about it.
So would it be utter madness to suggest that if this goes well for him, he could be an England captain? Bearing in mind, people are talking about Root's captaincy.
Cool, blimey, hold on.
No, hang on. Yeah, but hang on a minute. Stranger things have happened. If this goes well for him, and there are doubts over who should keep for England in the Test now, and he has leadership experience. I mean, other nations have found their captains have come out of nowhere sometimes.
Yeah,
and he has leadership potential. He has leadership experience. He sounded great there. Not that you give the England captain on the basis of a 1.5 minute interview to Aggers, but and we keep being told there are no other candidates but Joe Root. Is it madness to throw him into the mix?
Well, I think the captaincy, probably, you're going to have to look at somebody outside of the team. I mean, it would be a big ask to ask him to come in, keep wicket, bat and captain. That would be a huge ask for him. But he is a leader. He is someone that would definitely gain respect. But I think the problem would be that having not played any Test cricket at all, it would be too big an ask for him. I think you're looking for someone to come into that side. He's standing in front of Broad and Anderson. You're trying to give team talks to those guys. It's not easy. You need people who've, they'd have to earn the respect. I think Stokes is the only one in that team who could take the job on if Joe Root decided that it wasn't for him, or the powers be decided it was time to move on. I think Stokes is the only one in that team. Rory Burns, I thought, had a chance during periods of my time, but I'm not sure that he's nailed on, got a place at the moment. So that would be a tough ask for him to take that job on.
I don't think Joe Root's going anywhere. I don't think Joe Root's going anywhere as England captain anyway for the next year or two. So I don't think it's a concern. Just because you have a bad tour in Australia, crikey, there's been a few teams that have gone down under and haven't done any well down there.
Yeah,
and the captain always has to sort of make way a little bit and what have you. Joe Root's not going anywhere for me as captain. I think he needs to work at it. I think he needs to work at his captaincy and not just keep relying on his magnificent talent as a batsman. I think he needs help with his captaincy. But for me, he's the only one to captain that side.
Yeah, I'm delighted to say that joining myself and Tuffers and Paul Farbrace from Sydney is where are you in Canberra, Tammy?
Yeah,
You're in Canberra, are you? Thank you very much for joining us. Have you had any problems with Australia Border Police, or are you all okay?
I mean, it's been a bit of a mission to get here. We had to do a lot of days of safe living and an awful number of COVID tests, but at the airport bit was probably the easiest part. And we've done 1 day of full isolation until all our PCRs came back negative. And yeah, there's kind of a lot of restrictions out here. We can pretty much get a takeaway coffee and that's about it. But so far so good, and hopefully we're going to play some cricket.
Oh, can't hear Phil. I've completely... we've lost Phil. I've no idea. Phil's talking on the Zoom, but I can't actually hear the question. I couldn't work out whether anybody else could hear it. We can't hear him at the moment. What did you have to, Tammy? What did you have to go through before even flying out there? So, you know, the month or whatever, or over Christmas, were you really strict on having to self-isolate and so on and so forth before heading out?
Yeah, so I think pretty much 10 days before we flew, so that was about the 27th of December, we had to safe live at home, so pretty much just with your household, whoever you live with. And before that, even for Christmas, it was lateral flows every day, try and keep your circles as small as possible and just kind of as much as possible not get COVID, because we wouldn't have been able to fly. So yeah, it's been a bit stressful. You kind of wanted to see all your family, because we're obviously here for 3 months going straight on to New Zealand. But at the same time, it was all about keeping safe and getting on the plane.
Let's try Tuffers again, whose line is working, I think, because his phone has just gone off. I mean, blimey. First time we couldn't hear you. Second time we can hear you, but hear you. Who's that calling you at this time of night?
I don't know. It's absolute chaos. Tammy, sorry about that. It sounds like chaos. You're on a 63-strong travelling party, aren't you?
Yeah, we are. We've got our England A side out here. They're going to kind of play against us as warm-up games, and yeah, it's awesome. Obviously, the last Ashes series, Australia A came over, so it's a brilliant opportunity for those girls, but also for us to know that any issues, we've got another squad behind us, and it's great to see so many people out there. We've got some support people out here. My fiance has managed to come. I think you just saw him in the background of Zoom, but yeah, there's a few families who've been able to make it out, which has been great, but getting visas was a bit stressful at times. But yeah, it's kind of a first for us to be such a big touring party. Yeah. So yeah, it's been good so far.
So already in these early stages, does it feel like a very different tour before you've even got underway?
Yeah, it really does. I mean, our preparation for the last couple of weeks has been quite crazy. I've had to basically go in and face Merlin on my own, and yeah, I took my fiance in to kind of help out, but his cricket's kind of not up to that much. He's a rugby player by trade. We've got some very funny videos of you know, like Heather Knight's partner batting left-handed and Sarah Glenn bowling at her dad and him shouting, "That's four." So yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy kind of build-up, and maybe we don't quite feel as well prepared as maybe we would normally going for a tour. But yeah, I think it's just great to be out here, and hopefully we can get going quickly.
And for the way that, you know, the way it all works for the Ashes here, is it easy to switch formats in such a quick amount of time?
It is and it isn't. I mean, for the last six or so weeks, we've thought that the Test match was going to be first, and now it's actually the T20. So we've done an awful lot of red ball practice, and now actually get out and start trying to hit some sixes and bowl all our variations. But that's kind of part of being the modern player. We've got to switch very quickly, and I think for us as women, we don't play that many Test matches, so that's always kind of a novelty and something we have to put more time on to kind of really get it right. Probably still haven't. I've never actually had a result in any test I've played, but you know, I think it's coming. But it's something that we do have to do, is learn to switch really quickly.
Tammy, who has to drive the test impetus?
I think it's other boards. I think Australia, England, and now India are really keen to play test matches. But other teams, you know, I've played against Susie Bates from New Zealand for over 10 years, and she's never played a test match. So I think, you know, other countries have really got to take up that baton. And, you know, you see how the multi-format Ashes in the women's game really does work. And I think it's something that, you know, more teams could kind of take on. And then the more you play, the better kind of it will be, and the better product it will be sell to the public. And then, we might get more series. And for me, like, the thought of playing a test match in India would just be amazing as a player.
Yeah, it's hard though, isn't it, Paul, I suppose, because, it's constant discussion about test matches in the men's game and where the interest is there, and maybe outside, 3 or 4 of the big teams as test match cricket or interest in it waned in the men's. To then try and drive the impetus in the women's will be quite hard.
Yeah, it will be. But I think the one great thing is that the game has grown so quickly. The women's game has grown brilliantly. There's so much more support for it. There are more players playing it. And I think that's going to be the key now, that because there are more players playing, I think that will drive the standards up. And therefore, there will be far more interest, as Tammy says, from some of the other countries to start to play test match cricket. And I think that they should play test matches. Tammy's right there. There have been too many draws. I think that the game has to go to 5 days rather than the 4 days. And I would love to see more test match cricket play. But I think the big teams, England, Australia, India, have got to drive that. And they've got to start insisting against some of the other countries, no, we are going to have a test match within our series. And the sooner that happens, the better, again, it will take the game to another level for the women's game.
Phil, were you coming in? You look like
I was just saying. Do you fancy beating them? Do you fancy turning them over? Do you see any weaknesses? Aussie are still obviously the top of the pile, aren't they?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really competitive series. They've had quite a few injuries, and quite a few of their best players are kind of out for the series. So, and they've also come off a really, really tough series against India in the winter, where I think they had some sort of ODI streak for quite a long time that got broken. So, now's a good time to be playing them. And obviously with the World Cup coming up as well, we really want to put a big mark out there that, we're up there with them and we can take them on.
Well, and then straight after the World Cup, then you've got the Commonwealth Games as well. I mean, this is a massive year.
Yeah, it's a pretty big year. I think being part of the Commonwealth Games, I think that's almost a lot of fun in the summer, but it's kind of really special to be part of the first women's team to go to a Commonwealth Games, and hopefully we'll come off some real success this winter.
Tammy, and just to finish, you mentioned we saw your fiancé on this Zoom call. Can I just check, because you're obviously in quite a fancy room there. Is that a door behind you, or a wardrobe? Or has he gone into that wardrobe and hidden? Or is it actually a door out of your room?
No, it's actually a door to the bedroom. We've really absolutely lucked out with a little suite. So he needs to come on tour more often to get a bigger room.
Tammy, thank you. Wish you all the best over the coming Ashes series. Thank you very much for coming on.
Good luck.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Good luck.
Tammy Beaumont with us.
Locked in the cupboard. Locked in the cupboard.
I know, but it is, isn't it? It's one of those really posh hotel rooms, and it was very sliding doors. I mean, I couldn't work out whether he locked himself in a wardrobe or not. Paul Farbrace and Phil Tufnell with us. Let's just talk Bangladesh and New Zealand. Bangladesh, of course, winning the first test, but in the second test, they trailed by 395 runs on day 3. But let's not focus on the second test, really. Let's still focus on the first with Roshan Alam, host of the Bangla Cricket podcast. That is one of the cricket stories of the year, Roshan, that they won that test.
It absolutely is. I'd go as far as to say it's one of the cricketing stories of Bangladesh's 22-year test history.
Yeah.
Such a sensational win. And it's there's so many layers of context as to why this win is so special and so important for Bangladesh. Not least because the one thing that had been left off our unchecked on our list for several years is a big win against a big nation away from home. We'd won several times at home on low turning pitches with spinning attack, but the one thing we hadn't done was to go away to a nation like New Zealand, like England, like Australia, and win away. And I think for Bangladesh to have checked that off is a huge milestone.
Which should, Paul, open up more opportunities.
Absolutely. I think it's a brilliant. I think you're absolutely right. It is magnificent for Bangladesh. I messaged Russell Domingo and Otis Gibson the other day after that game to say, well done. I was really pleased with it. I think it's brilliant for the game. I think it is so good for the game. And the mention there of, winning games on low spinning wickets in Dhaka and Chittagong, to go away and show the high level of skill, to win in New Zealand, who are, one of the best teams in Test match cricket playing at the moment, is it's a fantastic win for them. Yeah, they might be champions. I mean, that's a great effort, but that their attack, their batting, they're such a good side at the moment, and for them to lose a home Test match, it is a big story. But Bangladesh played brilliantly throughout that. They really did.
Roshan, does Bangladesh cricket now feel it has more clout because of that?
It's an interesting one. I think Bangladesh cricket feels a sense of relief. We had a shocker of a 2021. We lost series against Pakistan, against Sri Lanka, against West Indies, and then at the T20 World Cup, we were arguably one of the worst sides there. And I think Bangladesh cricket relies heavily on their PR off the back of World Cups as to how the rest of international cricket judges them. Most people don't follow Bangladesh cricket day in, day out. And we feel that maybe decisions are made based on those sort of performances in the World Cup. And so I think there was a slight panic about going, how does this affect us for the next 2 to 3 years? Because at the moment, we are a nation where people do the minimum obligation. It's 2 tests, 3 one-day internationals, and in and out in 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah. And so I think this win in New Zealand has done considerably good PR for Bangladesh. I think it's come at just the right time.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Roshan Alam, host of the Bangla Cricket Podcast, with us on 5 Live Cricket.
Chappers, did you see that? I think it was Hussain or something, where the catch dropped and then they got 7 off there. Did you see that?
Then he
had to go and chase it. He had to go and chase it himself.
Poor fella. It's terrible for him.
Thank you very much.
Could you imagine Jimmy Anderson doing that?
No, I can't actually, Paul. I really can't.